Wes Goldberg, happy Thursday as we record this. Cold open question for you before we get into a game of either or, which we'll explain. Paul Pierce recently on Fox television. Okay, you don't know if you maybe didn't see this.
I haven't seen this, but you said Paul Pierce, so I'm just bracing myself. Go ahead.
He said to be open to being the Bachelor.
Like on the TV show?
Yes, he is like open to love in his life. And I ask you this: I don't know your TV watching habits. We've never discussed, like what slop we watch, or if we can. But if Paul Pierce, with Kevin Garnett as his like consigliere, like his buddy, that's like pops in and gives some advice. I think that's the thing on The Bachelor. I've only watched maybe one season at one point in my life. Would you watch The Bachelor if it was a season of Paul Pierce?
No.
Could that get you to tune in?
No. I've never watched an episode of The Bachelor. I loosely understand that it's about a single man trying to find
or women. Yeah.
That's The Bachelorette, right? But
yeah.
So
the franchise.
I not sure. The plot is super complex there, and maybe that's good for Paul Pierce to be able to. To answer your question, Chris, I will not watch it. There's nothing that could make me watch it. If Dwayne Wade was on it, my all-time favorite player, I probably still would not watch The Bachelor. It's just nothing against The Bachelor. I understand that it's very popular and a lot of people like it. It's just not my cup of tea. It's not exactly what I'm looking for in my off-night entertainment.
I agree, but I would consume the clips of Kevin Garnett trying to hype up Paul Pierce for his dates. Like if
Kevin
that was
Garnett would last about 30 minutes before he realized that it was ridiculous, and then he would leave.
Yeah, unless the check was huge. But like, is Kevin Garnett worth a huge check from the Disney Corporation? Probably not.
I don't know.
Not in this case. And Paul Pierce, by the way, is like a Fox employee.
Paul Pierce has already been fired by Disney.
By ESPN. We're like 4 years. Doesn't that feel about 10 years ago when he got fired for his Instagram Live?
Was that pre-COVID?
I assume so. I mean, I feel like it would have been like a bigger mess if that was like during the pandemic.
Also, I'm pretty sure this is not how The Bachelor works. Do you just go on your own podcast and say you would be open to doing that?
Well, he was on it wasn't even on a podcast. It was on like a Fox television show, like a rival company's daytime sports talk show. With like
and how did that even come up?
I don't know. I don't know. I read the Reddit post and didn't look at any context, Wes. This is the beauty of a cold open. It can be chaotic and kind of dumb.
Well, this one was dumb. I'll give you that.
Thank you. Look, we're coming off the trade deadline. It's been busy. Our brains are fried. Had to get a dumb question in about Paul Pierce. All right, on today's show, game of either or, we're going to pick different situations in the NBA and which one we would rather be going forward. That's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. Let's go.
Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Chris Manning and Wes Goldberg here. Another Just Basketball Show. Before we dive in, I want to shout out Wes. Really good piece you should go read at The Ringer right now. One Last Contender. Can Pat Riley build One Last Contender is the title. An estimated 10-minute read. There's a lot worse things you could do. Not many better.
It's better than watching Paul Pierce on The Bachelor.
I mean, yeah, but 10 minutes of your day to go get smarter about the Miami Heat and NBA. Go read our guy, Wes Goldberg, at The Ringer right after you listen to this podcast. But Wes, we're powered by our friends at BetMGM.
And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JUSTBasketball, and you're going to get up to $1,500 on a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JUSTBasketball. Deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bet if the bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JUSTBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Also got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. They use its vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and pop culture. They have a really cool Captain America line out this weekend ahead of the new Captain America movie. They have NBA, WNBA. Your favorite team is going to be on Homage, so go check them out. Use our link below. Support the show. Wes, let's dive into either or. So this game, I'm going to try to do the first time ever in our partnership, explain a gimmick well before you have to do it for me. Okay? We are going to have two teams, and that are in similar, obviously not one-to-one comparison. We're going to compare their situations and say which one would we rather be in charge of. If we were, let's say, David Griffin or Daryl Morey, where we're going to start with Philly. Did I explain that well, Wes? Did I do a good job in that one?
For the most part, I don't know that we
Okay.
had to be either David Griffin or Daryl Morey, but in other words, if we were running the show there,
Yeah. If we got
if
yeah,
it was
I
you
don't-
or I running the show there, yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Let's start with Philly and
Now,
New
I'm
Orleans.
sorry, one last
okay.
stipulation.
I didn't do
here.
good. So I didn't do a good job. Okay.
You did 80% of it.
Okay,
well.
good. Good.
Are we talking about for just this season or for the next several seasons?
I think it's next several seasons because I think like a lot of these, I think if we're looking, there's one that is really I think about this season. There's one that we'll get to that is title.
So
contenders
we're on the
that
Nico
are, like,
Harrison timeline of this season and the next 3 or 4 seasons, and that's really the entire future of the planet.
Yes, without the security detail and Tim McMahon beefing with a local independent reporter over reporting. We're not in like the most chaotic.
Or maybe we do have that. Who knows? Depends on the
Yeah,
situation, I guess,
we'll
that
see.
you're gonna propose here.
We're start with Philly and New Orleans, and I'm gonna make my case for New Orleans based on there's a lot of things we'll get into, but I'm just gonna base it on one thing that happened last night in the NBA, Wes, and that's Paul George's stat line. 37 minutes, 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, not a single free throw, 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 points. There's the Embiid factor and his health, their flexibility going forward, all of these other things that really are working against Philly as an interesting and compelling team going forward. Joel Embiid last week saying he might need to have another surgery would scare the absolute bejesus out of me if I was a Philly fan, if I was running the team, if I was cutting his paycheck. But having Paul George and signing this extension and having this year kind of exemplified by this game being an absolute dumpster fire of a deal so far, that alone, I think, becomes an untradeable contract, and their ability to go forward and like think this is going to get better. I don't know how high it is that this is next year immediately just a better thing. Like, I'm incredibly scared about what Philly has assembled here. Even if I think we were both pretty high, and I stupidly picked them to make the finals because I'm a moron, apparently. Philly it just feels very cooked to me, and the Paul George part of it scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, he hasn't had consecutive 20-point games in a month. For a guy that's on a max contract, that's a problem.
Yeah.
This guy's been wildly inconsistent all season long. There are games, and this has always been a little bit of a Paul George thing, where there'll be like a quarter where you don't even notice him on the court. He's like one of those Where's Waldo's guys, you know what I mean? And it feels like it's more than ever this season, where it's not just minutes or quarters at a time. There are whole games where you don't even notice Paul George. And the fact that we noticed Paul George last night only because of how terrible he was is even a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It's a terrible contract. And so you're proposing to me, would I rather be the Sixers or the Pelicans? And I understand where you're going with this because of the Joel Embiid versus Zion Williamson thing. There's obvious parallels there in terms of their unavailability and questions about their long-term health and conditioning. I would still rather be the Pelicans because
I would rather
my only
be the
problem,
yeah, to be clear.
my only problem is Zion. And if I'm Philadelphia, my problem is Joel Embiid and Paul George. Once you take Bradley Beal and his no trade clause out of the equation, these might be the 2 worst contracts in the league. How do you build around that? Is anybody trading for Paul George? No. Would anybody trade for Joel Embiid right now? I don't think so. What team out there is going to look at Embiid and be like, yeah, we want to pay that guy $60 million a year going forward? His extension has not even kicked in yet. That kicks in next season. So I don't know. To me, I would much rather be the Pelicans. I understand the Zion thing is out there, but you do have a get out of jail free card on Zion because of the structure of that contract. You can just waive him and walk away. You can't just waive Paul George or waive Joel Embiid and walk away. This last summer was Philadelphia's chance to rebuild Joel Embiid. They decided that they were going to use their cap space instead of getting a bunch of good role players and filling out with depth, which seems to be the way that good NBA teams should be building these days. It's have your 2 stars and then depth. And the Sixers are still like 10 years ago thinking about the big 3 concept and saying, oh my God, we finally have this. Like they can't quit it, right? Whether it was with Harden or Jimmy Butler or whoever it was. They can't quit that big 3 format. And so they tripled down on this. It bit them in the butt. And now they got to deal with it. Whereas if I'm New Orleans, if I decide I don't want to be in the Zion business, I'm out. Waive him. You're done. You don't have to do it. And he does have more trade value because Zion is still young. Like, he has more trade value than Embiid and Paul George. So you could still trade him and probably get something at least of some sort of value back. And you know what I really like about the New Orleans situation, Chris? At least I have Trey Murphy III.
Yes.
Who
You have
is
Trey
I
Murphy,
think,
who's-
fourth in scoring in the league over the last 10 games. He's on a heater right now, and I think it's for real. I don't know if he's going to be fourth in scoring forever, but that guy's a legit asset that I can feel really good about. And I guess if you're Philly, you have Tyrese Maxey, but wings win in this NBA. So
Yeah, and they have
my answer
and they
is the
have
Pelicans.
It's the I mean, the Pelicans is the answer. I don't think this is really even that much of a debate. Even just like, okay, the Paul George thing we hit on. Even Embiid versus Zion is like, that is your crux. You have the get out of jail free card, which you said. Zion's also 24. I'm not saying that I feel like great about Zion lasting like another 10 years or even what that's going to look like, but he's younger. He was born in 2000. Joel Embiid next year, this is from Spot Track, age 32, estimated $59.5 million salary. The year after, at age 33, estimated $64.3 million. The last year, 28-29, age 34 player option. Spoiler, he's picking up that player option. Like, that's going to get picked up. $69 million salary. If he has another surgery, much less like even just keeps getting hurt, what is Joel Embiid going to look like at 34 when Paul George is like 38? Right? Like, you're betting on Maxey having to hit this insane upper echelon of what he could be, which is probably not going to happen.
There's not a player in the league that can carry that team.
No.
There's like Jokic couldn't play. Jokic couldn't do it.
Prime LeBron, I don't think could even do it. I don't like it would be too
Because
much for one
especially
guy
in today's league.
Yes, exactly.
Where if you
Too much
have
talent.
whatever it is, $120 million in salary dedicated to two players, that's your ceiling. You can't build around Tyrese Maxey or somebody even better. This is an easy one to me. It's Philly. Or it's New Orleans. I do not want to be Philly. I don't know that there's anybody that I would switch spots with at this point. Like, Philly might be. I mean, I don't know if we have this team later, but like, would you rather be the Sixers or the Wizards?
We don't have the Wizards in here. I don't think I think the Wizards have like a real curse factor, but at least like you're young and you're relatively cheap and like there's not like a lot.
You have a path.
You have like a vague path to something where if you're Philly, I don't know.
They don't have a vague path. They just have a million. Like, they have nothing.
By
and
vague,
I mean, I would rather have nothing.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Then
yeah.
I would rather be starting from zero than starting from wherever it is that the Sixers are starting from. One last thing on the Sixers before we move on. Over under 120 games played for Joel Embiid throughout the length of that extension. So starting next year.
I'm just gonna go under. When I hear the words knee surgery out of his mouth, I just immediately think we're headed towards like a June knee surgery.
That's 40 games a year.
Yeah,
You're going under.
Yeah, it scares the crap out of me. I don't know why. At this point, I don't have optimism for that. Like, it's also just telling, to put a bow on this, that we're picking New Orleans, and it's like, okay, they have Zion, who's just like a complete unknown, is probably not hitting his potential at this point. DeJounte Murray just tore his Achilles and is out for a while and is on an expensive contract. A lot of our young guys are still sort of, I think, up in the air, but it's like Murphy and Herb Jones and like
Eve
that's
Missy,
what I feel
like him.
and Missy. And like that's what I feel good about. And we're just like, there's probably not a super duper star in that bunch, and we're just like, yep, the Pelicans, because they're not absolutely railroaded by salaries on older injured players.
Yeah, I'm a little bit higher on New Orleans, it sounds like, than you are, but to your yes, they don't even have a Maxey in that group, right?
Exactly.
But
unless Murphy's sort of like that. But
yeah, I love Murphy. To me, he's probably a second option at best on a good team. A really good second option. Maybe he proves me wrong. I mean, the way he beat the Boston Celtics a few weeks ago seems like he could prove me wrong. But yeah, I'd rather be New Orleans, to your point. Next one.
All right. This is title contention. These are the teams that I think it's more about this year, but I think you could also look at the next couple of years as well, considering I don't think either of the teams are necessarily going anywhere. It's the New York Knicks and the Memphis Grizzlies. And Wes, I want you to go first, but my structure on this was sort of, I thought about this in terms of three guys on each team. I thought about the Ja Jaren Jackson partnership and what that is. And I thought about the Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns partnership. And then the third guy on each side is the coach. It's Tom Thibodeau in New York and Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. Both of these teams, I think I would have in that three. It's like three in how I feel about these teams in their respective conferences right now. Knicks behind Boston, Cleveland. I think Denver, Jamal Murray, by the way, that would give me a ton of life. The career high 55-point performance from him this week would give me a ton of joy if I was a Nuggets fan and just feeling optimistic about my chances this year. But it's Oklahoma City and Denver, and then I think Memphis. There's a case that they are there at 3. Which one of these would you rather be, Memphis or New York?
So this is a really good one.
Thank you. This is the best one to me.
So if I had to pick one player, Madden draft style, just add it to my team and start a team around one player out of this whole group, it might be Jaren Jackson Jr.
He's been that good this year. He's
been that good two-way player. What he's doing offensively, we know what he can do defensively. He's a former defensive player of the year. What he's doing offensively, last year playing without Ja really made him grow. He put him under the stress test, and he grew through that. And now he's doing stuff one-on-one in isolation, things like that have been really impressive. Plus he's young and he's relatively durable. That said, I think I still take the Knicks here. I think I'd rather be the Knicks, understanding that I think the gap between New York and Boston is a pretty big one. I think the gap between New York and Cleveland is honestly a pretty big one. The Knicks have a famously losing record against the good teams. That said, I can't trust Ja Morant to stay healthy. And that's the part that scares me. Brunson, always available and healthy. Karl Anthony Towns always plays a lot of games. Mm-hmm. I feel Mikal Bridges plays a lot of games. OG Anunoby is the one thing, but that's why they went and got Bridges. Now you don't really need Anunoby to play every single game.
Like they also have Josh Hart, and they have Josh Hart, who's just like there. Yeah,
that team is durable, and I know they play, and I love the talent there. I don't think they have a chance to win the championship this year. I just think the top of the East is too good unless there's some crazy injuries and stuff helps their path. I actually think Memphis probably has a better chance of reaching the finals this year than the Knicks do. But if we're talking about like the next 2 or 3 years, Boston's going to have to make a decision at some point on how they're going to break up this roster and reduce payroll.
And I think that could be next. I think that could be next summer. Like I think we might be there in like 6 months. Like we're not far.
And you look at the way that guys like Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday are aging. I think the window is going to be more open for the Knicks. And I said this even when they made the trades for Towns and Bridges this summer. I don't think it was a move for this year. This was a move to be the next Celtics after the Celtics fade a little bit here. They're always going to be good because they have Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but the playing field will be a little bit more even. So give me the Knicks because I like their chances of actually winning a championship over the next 2 or 3 years a little bit more than the Memphis Grizzlies, even though I'd probably pick the Grizzlies if it was just this year. And Jaren Jackson Jr. would be the player I would pick out of all this group, but that's not what you asked. So I'm taking the Knicks here.
Yeah, I lean the Knicks as well, and there's 2 reasons. Number one, I think that has been a team that has shown a willingness to be aggressive where they need to be to go fill gaps. Like Memphis, I think they've tried, but they haven't succeeded in going to get that piece now. Like the Jalen Wells, the Gigi Jackson, like lottery tickets they have are younger pieces. I don't think the Knicks have guys that I'm like that as excited about, which gives them some upside.
No.
But it does go back to some degree to me down to Brunson and Morant. Like that is where I think my head debate goes to. Brunson obviously a little bit older, but if you just look at what they are doing for their respective teams this year, Brunson is just flat out a better 3-point shooter on a pull up as a 3-level scorer. That stuff matters in the playoffs. Ja has been a little bit in and out this year. The 3-point shooting has never quite been his biggest strength. I think against like OKC and how much length they have and what they can throw to him, I think that's a liability. He's at 33.7% this year. Brunson's at 38.8%. I think that even if he gets a little bit older, I think that's still going to lose 28. You have a window there with him as your guy, as him carrying a bunch. The part that scares me about New York, I think not just this year but going forward, is if Tibbs is in control, do they just get worn down at a certain point where Memphis does ultimately just like a little bit better depth? Jenkins isn't going to run these guys into the ground. I think that feels like the thing with Ja this year is they're not trying to run his gas tank on E by late March into April. The Knicks, I think there's that concern if they get to round 2 and it's Boston. Like, what is the gasting when they're playing like 7 guys, really, really heavy minutes? That does just take a toll. It does.
Yeah, that's why I kind of want to see this. I want to see the playoffs this year because they are deeper. You add a Karl Anthony Towns and a Mikal Bridges. Miles McBride has taken a leap this year.
Yeah.
Do they have to? They had to rely on those guys last year, and that wasn't.
Yes.
I know there was a lot of minutes and stuff like that. They got hurt, man. Like there were some freak injuries and stuff like that in the playoffs where they really, they were reduced to a really short staff there. The one point that I want to underscore a little bit that you just made, though, Memphis has the young players. They have the assets. Maybe they would be aggressive in making that move. You said that they haven't, but to your point, we're running the show here, so maybe we would be a little bit more aggressive. But yeah, you just said it. They've tried. They tried to go get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant basically said, "I don't want to play for you." Jimmy Butler said, "I don't want to play in Memphis." So I like the Memphis construction. I like the assets that they have. If I felt confident that I could go get Kevin Durant, right? If I tell you Kevin Durant, we're adding him to Memphis's roster. Now, what do you think about this question? You take the Grizzlies.
You take
no
the
questions.
Grizzlies. Yeah.
But I don't think I can get Kevin Durant. I think every star has told you, yeah, I don't want to play in Memphis. I don't want to do it. For whatever reason, I think Memphis is a super underrated city. I love Memphis. I don't know why. I think it's a great basketball town. They love their college hoops. They love basketball. But the Stars don't want to go there. And that would and you know what? You know where the Stars do want to go? New York. So give me the Knicks.
The other part of this, I think, from Memphis that I find interesting is if you look at them as like a Cleveland by comparison. Cleveland went and just traded for Donovan Mitchell when we all thought he was going to go to New York. No guarantee he was going to resign. Ultimately worked out for them. Shouldn't Memphis at some point maybe do something like that? Just say, like, you know what? Ja's close to his prime. Jaren's in his prime. Let's just go do the trade. If we have a year and a half on a guy's contract, and I don't really necessarily know who that guy even is, as we're thinking about the trade landscape right now. Like, that's also the tricky
problem.
part here. Like, Jimmy or Kevin Durant, as they're older, would have been, like, I think, worthwhile just flies, even if you maybe, like, the half a year potential for both of them is where you get a little bit skittish. But that was if there was, like, a year and a half on Durant's contract or a year and a half on Butler's contract, I think I would have just done it and just said, let's
there
run
is
the
a year
risk.
and a half on their contracts. Well, Jimmy's got the player option.
Yeah, but yeah,
there's
and
a
I guess
year and a half on Durant's option. The problem is that
Durant cantankerous.
Well, no, the Suns are also wanting everything, according to all the reports. Like they were probably asking for Jaren Jackson Jr. in the trade, which is crazy. But no, I think you're right. And we saw them maybe chase Mikal Bridges a little bit, and then you saw what the Knicks came in with the crazy amount of picks. They chased OG Anunoby a little bit. I think there was the right decision. That's not exactly your Donovan Mitchell type guy. Injury concerns, all of that stuff. Cam Johnson, nice player, not that guy, right? So I do think that they would be willing to maybe go in, but they're still waiting for that guy, to your point. I don't know who that wing is at this stage or who it could be.
Yeah, and it's like you look at the listicles out there right now of like the next guys who theoretically could hit the market. It's like not guys that I think fit for them. Like number one, if Giannis ever hits the market, like I kind of just suspect he's going to end up in a marquee.
Yeah, he's too powerful. He'll end up wherever he wants.
But it's like Trae Young, that's not a guy that fits them. Zion is like a risk.
No.
Yeah. Like Durant, okay, like yes, it's older and I would get it, but is that if you already went through this conversation and would have less team control if you even did that route.
Yeah, like if you do it this summer. So the problem with Durant is if you do it this summer, he has a lot more leverage because now it's just 1 year of having Kevin Durant, and then he can enter free agency in 2026. And maybe if you're Memphis, you just say, okay, we're going to do it anyway. But just that only having 1 year with them would scare me a little bit. How
would you feel about
they're young enough.
Marketing for them? Not a star, but like a very, very good player. If that was the kind of
marketing's good. I don't mind marketing for them. What if Boston said, you know what, we're just not ready to. We just can't pay Jaylen Brown $60 million a year. We love him, but we can't pay our second best player. That's the kind of guy, and I don't think that'll happen over the next year or even in 2 years. And maybe at that point, it's a little bit too late in the Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson life cycle there, but that would be something, right? Like that would be interesting to me. I don't know. We could do the whole trade machine thing, but yes, I think we're going down the right path here.
Yeah, but I still think the answer is the Knicks.
Yeah, we're taking the Knicks.
Yeah, I think I agree with you where they are this year, but I think the East next year is at the top, depending on what Boston does. And frankly, what Cleveland does to restock on some of the edges a little bit, I think we're headed towards a really bloody East next year. All right, we're gonna get into Pistons or the Warriors next. Two teams in different spaces, but two teams that are, I think, chasing different things here. We'll talk about them, but got to tell you about our friends at eBay and their Game Time Gets collection. Along with career benchmarks, league-wide records, and single-game achievements, you can find these at ebay.com/Game Time Gets. Wes, I got to tell you, I also the other day ripped a pack of cards open for the first time in a long time. We're going to try to maybe do something with that here on the show. It was actually like kind of, I didn't get anything like particularly valuable, but it was like fun. It was like, oh, I got a Bruce Brown card. It was just like you get like the role guys. You're like give me a Kenrich Williams card. I think I would have a ball. Williams, but these cards start.
Do you get to see the little mullet on the back of it?
I hope so. That would be what I would want. You know, that's what I would want. Or give me like I would love like a Bam Adebayo card. I'm a big Bam guy. I'm still on the bandwagon forever.
Yeah. But
bidding for these cards starts at 24 cents and is homage to the game's 24-second shot clock. So check that out at ebay.com/Game Time Gets. All right, Wes, let's get into Pistons or Warriors. And such an interesting, I think you suggested this one on our chat, and it's such an interesting, maybe slightly philosophical answer on where you want to be as a team. And what kind of situation you'd want to look at, because the Warriors is clearly about the rest of this year, the next year, and the year after. You have 2.5 years to chase whatever is left out of Steph Curry. You pay Jimmy Butler, and you have Draymond. What can they do these next 2.5 years? On the other side, the Pistons are run by Cade. They've really turned it around this year, led by JB Bickerstaff. They have Jaden Ivey, who's going to come back sooner rather than later from that injury, and I think hopefully picked up where he left off. But there's clearly a lot of talent acquisition that needs to happen there for them to maximize this and not just be stuck as like the 7th best team in the East for a cycle with Cade. So if you're given the ability to take control of one of these teams and see the next couple of years through in it, which one would you prefer?
Yeah, so for the Warriors, both teams have their guy, right? You're the Warriors, you've got Steph, and if you're the Pistons, you've got Cade, and obviously Steph is a decade older than Cade Cunningham and whatever. But you have your guy. If you're the Warriors, you're kind of locked into what this is. And your window is pretty limited, but it's now. And if you're the Pistons, your window is down the road a little bit. And you have a lot of questions as to how you're going to build around Cade Cunningham and whether or not you could attract stars to Detroit and things like that. I think I would rather be the Pistons. And maybe that sounds crazy. And to me, I like what the Warriors did in adding Jimmy Butler. I think at this point, though, to expect the Warriors to compete for a championship, I don't think that that's what that trade was really about. I think that trade was about making the Warriors interesting and competitive. That's what that trade was about. And you're aligning Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond on the same timeline, and you still got Kuminga, and you still got those young guys. You're just going to be fun for the next couple of years, and then you're going to start retooling. This is really the 2-timeline plan. To me, Steph Curry's career right now is not about accomplishments. It's about moments. And we were at a point now where with Steph, they weren't even in the position to give him a moment. Now the Warriors could be a fun first-round team where Steph hits a game winner at the end of Game 3 and maybe makes a higher seed sweat a little bit. That's all we want from Steph. I think the Warriors realize that. I think Steph realizes that. The Pistons, meanwhile, there's a history of winning that is a basketball town. Cade Cunningham is legit. I like Ivy just like you do. I'm interested to see what he looks like when he eventually does come back. There's good flexibility there. I think they're run really well. I think they have the right guys in that front office. I think they have the right coach for right now. And then the 6th seed in the East. Like, this is a team that we're not talking about Toronto, Charlotte, Washington. We're not talking about a rebuilding group, right? They did that. They already went through the 28-game losing streak. They did that already. They're on the up and up. This is a team that's probably going to make the play-in tournament this year, maybe the playoffs, and get a little bit of experience, something that they could build on. And I feel really good about having my guy. And I feel like if you're picking stars for the next 10 years in the Eastern Conference, I don't know that Cade's the first pick.
He's not. I mean, he's not. He's not to me, and I'm a little biased. He's not even the guy picking first in his draft class.
Right. Totally fair. But he's one of the top 5 picks probably in that made-up draft.
Yeah.
So I feel really, I don't know, I feel better about the Pistons' outlook. To me, there's an actual path to eventually making a finals over the next half decade or so, whereas I just don't really see that path for the Warriors.
I'm gonna go the total opposite way. I thought about this hard. This is the one I think I stewed on the most. I would rather be the Warriors. The Pistons in some ways are at the easy part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that like them turning this around was easy, because it wasn't. To just eat the Monty Williams money, to do what they did and like kind of put some Band-Aids on some stuff and to get better, I think isn't an easy thing to do. They had to get a lot of things had to break right. But the next step is not just it's not just holding your position as like the 6th best team in the conference. It is, okay, how do we push the Pacers? Orlando should be back healthier and has, I think, a higher collection of talent to work with. The Heat are lurking below you. You have the Bucks still there, and they have Giannis as long as they do. Like the Knicks and you're chasing Cleveland and Boston and New York. Like your chase and like how you can get higher with the roster they have, the lack of market appeal. I think, not like a ton of, like there's not a guy on the team you can really flip for a higher end thing, I don't think. And just like a lot, and like at some point you're going to have a turnover. Like next year they're kind of locked into a certain collection of guys. Like you have Tobias Harris still. Like you'll have to replace, like Tim Hardaway's money comes off the books. You have Schroeder now. Like they'll have some veterans to replace that have been good for them this year. And the year after that, you have kind of like a bare bones thing where it's like Cade, Ivy's extension would kick in then. Thompson on the last year of his rookie deal. Ron Holland on a rookie deal. Sasser, and Cade on his extension. It's like in Beef Stew at $15 million. So like you're getting into bare bones things where you're gonna have to turn this over and do that correctly to keep.
But what if
this
those are
thing
the
going
guys?
upward.
What if, we like Cade, we like Ivy. I love Asar Thompson.
Yeah.
What if you've got your guys already?
It's possible, but I think also like finding the right pieces around those guys, I think is just historically a challenge for a market like Detroit. It just is. That's not totally fair. And I'm not saying the Warriors thing is guaranteed to work, because it is not. The Kuminga thing this summer is one of the 3 most fascinating things going on in the league. Because what do you pay him? What is his optimal role? Is it even in Golden State? Like, how does that all mesh together is a question I don't know the answer to. I'm sure Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob necessarily don't feel like great about what that answer totally is right now, if you were to give them true serum. But if I have Jimmy and Steph and Draymond, and to your point, I can chase moments, and there's like a 5% chance I could get one more title run out of this thing with Steph on my team. I want that. I want that lottery ticket that has this high upside, even if the likelihood of it happening is minuscule.
I don't look. I think the Warriors are in a fine position. I'm not trying to shit on the Warriors, but that's the difference, right? Is you're viewing what they have as a lottery ticket. I'm looking at it as a scratch off where we've already scratched all the stuff off and we realize there's nothing on it.
I think there's like one thing left, and you're just like, I need this one specific thing to win the biggest jackpot possible.
I've completed my scratch off and I got nothing, and you still have one little thing to go, and you're just hoping this is $150.
But it's only the big prize. Like the only thing I can win is the biggest prize. Like there's not like I'm not going to get my money back on like $2 for my ticket. It's like I'm either winning $50,000 or I wasted $2 at the gas station.
I don't see that upside with this Warriors team, and that is the fundamental difference. If I thought that this team, like you, had a 5% chance of winning the finals, then I would have taken the Warriors.
5%. If I'm using the lottery ticket analogy, it's probably like 2%. It's like 2%.
Yeah, no, whatever. If I thought there was a percentage chance of them winning the finals, I would take the Warriors. Yeah. I think that percentage chance is 0, and I know I'm coming off as a Warriors hater. That team's not good enough to make it through the Western Conference. Are you kidding? Yeah. No way. So, and this team is only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. When they have to pay Kuminga, this gets harder to build around Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, right? Like this isn't. This to me is a team that is built to win maybe one playoff round, maybe, and that's good. I'm excited now to watch the Warriors in the playoffs, but my expectations could not be lower.
I think it's entirely possible that is the most they ever accomplish. Maybe even then, it's like, I don't know. Like if they're getting, Lord knows what the Lakers. I thought about the Lakers in this situation with one of these, but it's like hard because they have Luka now. Like it's hard to find.
Yeah, is there a team that you would rather be than the Lakers?
The
Lakers
Spurs.
of the field.
the Spurs. I'd rather be the Spurs.
Okay.
It's just
I've got
because
LeBron and Luka, dude. Like,
yeah, well, we got like a year left. I think last year LeBron, and it's just like the Spurs have the assets and they have Wembanyama, so I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'll figure this out.
yeah, but star players just end up playing for the Lakers. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
how you manage the team. It doesn't like for the rest of your life. Would you rather be another organization than the Lakers? The answer is no.
You're born
You've got
around. You're
LeBron
born
James,
around
Anthony Davis, Luka
yeah.
Doncic just fall into your lap whenever you're struggling. You just get a star player. Of course, you would rather be the Lakers.
Let's hit on. We didn't cover this because we took a episode off because I was traveling for work. Let's just for real quick. Mark Williams trade rescinded.
Yeah, they dodged a bullet. The more I love this trade at first when it first broke, I was like, wow. And then you think about it, and like the health concerns are really an issue. This is sort of your all-in play. I think the Lakers dodged a bullet by this thing getting rescinded a little bit. Now the fact that Charlotte is first of all, you rarely see these things get rescinded and reversed because it's just so awkward for both organizations and the players you traded away. You're almost just like, I don't want to. I'd rather, instead of dealing with the awkwardness of bringing Dalton Connect and Mark Williams back to organizations after we traded them, we'll just eat it and deal with it. But the fact that both these guys have to walk back to those organizations that traded them, and that you have Charlotte literally fighting the repeal right now while having to bring Mark Williams back, is a really awkward situation for Mark Williams. Mark Williams went from, I think, the biggest winner of the trade deadline to one of the biggest losers of the trade deadline because his life just got ridiculously more complicated for seemingly no reason.
Yeah, no question. And I think if you're the Lakers, to your point about like them lucking into like a star, like they're probably just gonna like find a really good center option at some point that's like better than Mark Williams. Like that's
Alex Len was like, I'm gonna sign with the Pacers, and that's
like,
not a really good center option. But he was like, I'm gonna go sign with the Pacers, and he was like, psych, actually not gonna do that. I'm gonna go sign with the Lakers. Everybody cool with that? They just every time they need something, that something just sort of appears for them. It's absolutely crazy. I understand if you're a fan of another team why you would hate the Lakers. This has to be so annoying. I understand it. I get it. But there is not enough. If you try to talk yourself into being another team, you give me the Thunder, dude. No way. You're galaxy braining it. You're overthinking it. I'd rather be the Lakers forever.
Yeah.
It's why JJ Redick gave up a cush gig, because it's the Lakers coach. He wouldn't have done it to go coach the Hornets.
No.
So it's like there's no question. You would always pick the Lakers. They're the best situation in the league, no matter what their situation is.
Yeah. The fact that we're also maybe not done with this either because the Hornets are like, suing's not the right word, but they've like filed a dispute on this just means we're gonna get. I feel like the mess of this isn't over totally yet. We're gonna find out some stuff about Mark Williams, I think, and what's actually in the medical, which is
true,
which is stuff. All right, last one, Wes. And this is maybe the most random one, but it's the Brooklyn Nets or the Portland Trail Blazers, and here's why these are in here.
Oh, this is interesting.
These are two teams that right now are like winning more games than they probably should be. The Nets, I just want to say for the record, are 2.5 games out of the play-in tournament in the East behind the Chicago Bulls. They are even record-wise with the 76ers, which tells you a little bit about how crappy the 76ers season has been. They are 6-4 in their last 10, won 3 in a row. Portland, on the other hand, is a game and a half behind the Spurs. They're 23-32. They have a winning record at home. They are 15-13 in Portland, and they've won 3 in a row, 6-4 in their last 10. Had, like, I believe, an 8-game winning streak not so long ago. If you look at the Tankathon odds right now, Brooklyn has the 6th best odds to win the lottery. Portland has the 9th. These are teams that are a little further away. I mean, pretty significantly further away from Washington and New Orleans and Utah and Charlotte and like the bottom of the league. So they are, to some degree, like very unlikely Cooper Flag teams. When I think we would have pegged them as likely-ish Cooper Flag teams for next year. Check out Real Jim Radio, Wes Goldberg show.
Sorry, that thing just started playing.
Check that out. It's a good show. Which of those two, if you look at their rosters, would you actually rather be, considering they are overperforming still bad teams that aren't close?
Yeah, so you did a good job of just kind of laying out the whole thing there, and it still didn't help me. This is a really good one. I think I would rather be Brooklyn because I'm the only team with cap space this summer.
I don't think that's doing you any good if I'm being honest. Like it's a
Well,
weird.
you can at least do we'll take your battered and your poor and your hungry deal. You could go the full Sam Presti and be like, what's the bad contract you don't want anymore? We'll take it. Throw us a few picks.
Sure.
And Portland is weirdly expensive. Like, that is one of the highest payrolls in the league for a pretty crummy roster. So, while I like the talent, but the problem with Portland is some of those players are good. Like, I'm still holding out for hope for Scoot Henderson. I like Shaden Sharp. I like Tumani Kamara. I like a lot of these guys that they have. I like Donovan Clingan. Where I look up and down that Brooklyn roster, I don't know that I love any of those guys. Like, maybe I like Claxton. I really like Keon Johnson, but we're not talking about like a game changer there. But
Yeah.
I at least like the knowledge, knowing I have some cap space and I have some options this summer, where it feels like Portland, they're going to have to make some tougher decisions over the next couple of years in how they want to deal with a Jeremy Grant contract. That could actually cost them an asset to get off of at this point. Where if I'm Brooklyn, I'm grabbing all these assets and I'm doing stuff. And if I can get into the bottom four, which seems pretty tough at this point because I'm 6 games up on Charlotte, who's currently got the 4th worst record in the league. You can get to the bottom 4. Those lottery odds start to flatten out a little bit. But if I'm Brooklyn, I feel pretty good that I'm going to get, I don't know, I can lose a bunch of games here. I could probably get a top 3 or 4 pick in a draft where it feels like there's 3 or 4 really good players. And maybe I don't end up getting Cooper Flagg, but I end up getting somebody who I really like. I've got a good coach that I like. I'm in a better market than Portland, no offense. I love Portland.
Yeah.
But we're already seeing players kind of be interested in going to Brooklyn. I don't know. I think I'd rather be Brooklyn just because of the optionality here. And while I like some of the players in Portland, I'm not like that's the number one option on a championship team. So I'd rather have the outs and the options that Brooklyn has.
I think that's right. Portland has the advantage of guys that are more interesting. Just got like a better collection of young guys that are ready-made. I think if you get your super duper young guy that you can hit that step on, I think that's where they're a little bit more interesting. I like the coach better in Brooklyn. I think Jordi Fernandez is going to be like a long time successful coach. I think Sean Billups is like a fine head coach. Nothing.
Yeah, I think Billups has done a pretty good job there this year, but there's already some rumors that this might be his last season there. So
yeah, and I think that
decision.
Yeah, so there's that. You got to nail that hire. The market thing does matter, and I think ownership matters. Like Josiah will be willing to spend when it comes down to it. Like, did that work last time that he did it? No. Although, like, a lot of things went into that, which we don't need to relitigate. But like when it comes down to people spend, even like something like Claxton, like your optionality that you get, like that's a good player I'd want to have. But he's also on a declining contract heading into his late 20s. Like if you needed to trade him for more stuff because you got another center or something, like you can do that, and that's like a pretty reasonable contract I would think to trade at a position that has been pretty bare bones in the trade market as of late. So I think it's Brooklyn as well. The real answer might just be like, does one of them get insane lottery luck in the spring and West? That's why, for the first time this year, it's time for a Tankathon spin. We're post the trade deadline, and I think we're gonna start ending every episode with a Tankathon spin. Okay, we're gonna end here. We're gonna make this little social pull out Tankathon spin. Who gets Cooper Flagg lottery order? So here we go. Tankathon spin. Wizards right now obviously have the best odds. New Orleans lost 10 in a row, coming in hot. And our odds, Wes. Oh my God, this is certainly a result. Are you ready?
Give me the top 5.
You want to go 5-1 or 1-5?
Give me 1. Yeah, we don't have to get crazy.
Charlotte Hornets, you have the number 1 pick.
Love that.
Don't love that personally. I want Cooper Flagg away from the Melo Ball.
Yeah, but you got Cooper Flagg and Brandon Miller now in Charlotte.
Yeah,
now you open the door to trading LaMelo.
Yeah, let's trade LaMelo. Number 2, the Suns jumped 10 spots only to have their pick go to the Houston Rockets.
Okay. Wow, Houston with number 2. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Utah at 3. Philly goes up to 4.
Oh, good for them.
Washington slides to 5.
Yeah. So Houston at number 2 is really interesting there, isn't it? Because you can get that kid from Rutgers who's like people are comparing to Tracy McGrady.
Or they're trading that pick for a superstar, because I think that is like that is still the number 1 team that I think is doing something crazy next summer.
If you're the Suns, you lose that pick. and Houston calls you and says, we'll do this pick and some salary for Devin Booker,
Oh my god.
knowing that you have to probably trade Kevin Durant this summer anyway. So Durant's out the door. You can't trade Beal.
Beal's on the West Coast Wizards. That's how this
And
happened?
well, maybe then he waives his no trade clause, and you can move him. He's like, well, I'm not playing with Durant and Booker anymore, so what's even the point? Just trade me anywhere. But yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd think about it. I'm having a long meeting about that.
And if they don't, then if you're Houston, I guess you could shop it around. I don't know. Would you do it if you're Houston for Durant though? I wouldn't. Number 2 pick.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Not for 36-year-old Durant.
If it was like this year's draft class, I would. If it was next year's
not
draft
next
class,
year's draft class, right? Yeah.
Like I don't think I would, based on what we know about that draft.
Or
class and
technically
how,
this year's draft class.
Yeah,
not
the
last year's.
2025 class,
Right.
I would not do it for. The 2024 class, I think I would have.
Yeah, man. Like, I would do it. I would do it for Booker, and I wouldn't feel great about it. Honestly, if I'm Houston, I would only. The only reason I'm doing it is if it depends on how these playoffs go. If I feel like I'm a Devin Booker away, then I do it. But I almost need. I might need more stuff from Phoenix. Like, I might need those 2 other first-round picks plus Devin Booker to move off the number 2 pick in this draft.
They're
They're literally comparing this guy to Tracy McGrady.
I know, but it's like it is to some. I sometimes think about this with young guys and every sport when you trade them. It's like you could have the superstar who's still in his prime in Devin Booker, or you could have like the mystery box. And a young guy is always kind of a mystery box unless it's like one of 3 guys the last 20 years. So like I almost would rather just like, particularly for a looming thing with the Rockets, that is, it was a team I wanted to maybe try to shoehorn in here, but we didn't quite fit. Was like that is another team that has a roster refresh like coming to some degree, and some of it is potentially like erased if Thompson just becomes like destroyer of worlds, and maybe there's like a Jalen Green trade, or like Jalen Green evens out, or whatever it is. But there is like something that needs to be figured out there. This team has, when Fred VanVleet has been out, has just like been anemic in late game offense. That would scare me if I were them, and what the rest of the talent is. So like there's stuff to be figured out there. And if you told me I could go get Devin Booker, I think I would just like not even think twice about it.
Yeah, I don't know, but the NBA operates kind of like that Family Guy scene where it's like you could get a boat, or you could choose between these doors, and anything could be behind them, even a boat.
Yeah,
And
they do, and I get it.
Like,
I get
Devin
why.
Booker's the boat outside in plain sight.
Yeah,
And then NBA teams love to look through the doors to try to get a boat. So
that
I
might
don't
not
know
even
what
be
the
as good.
Rockets would do.
That also might be like a smaller boat. It might be like a good boat, but it might still be like a smaller boat with like
and there's always
engine
that
troubles.
percent chance that it's a bigger boat, right? Like that you get the yacht. So
Yeah.
But the other part about this, if you're Houston, is at least the new guy would align on your timeline. So that's why I say it depends on what this looks like in the playoffs. If you feel like Şengün can be a great number 3 or a number 2, Amen Thompson is a great number 3 or a number 2, but you're missing that number 1, and you feel like you can go chase it right now, then maybe you do go for Booker. But that your team gets a lot more expensive right away, and you might be missing out on a guy who just if Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey is the next top scorer in the NBA, are you missing out on a chance to get your Jordan Pippen, right? Between a top scorer like that and Amen Thompson.
Plus,
and
Şengün is also
you just
there, who's
align
good.
their timelines for the next decade.
Yeah. I think
And Booker, he's been really he's awesome. He's missed the All-Star game 2 out of the last 3 years. This isn't. I don't know. I would. There would be a long meeting about it. I think I probably would just ultimately be like, we can get Devin Booker. Let's just go get Devin Booker. Yeah. But there would be long meetings about it, and there would be a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of kind of projections that I'm not prepared to do right now for like what this looks like for the next half decade.
You're not sleeping well for like a month as you think about this.
No, and I'm not, whatever team, like I'm not watching one of those Rutgers guys play for the Phoenix Suns, because every time that guy scores a bucket, I'd be like, oh my God, what did we give up?
Yeah, it's like I got to go on a scouting trip to watch like some Big Ten games in Maryland this week while Devin Booker comes through Phoenix. I gotta step out for while
number 3?
Bailey comes in. Number 3 was the Utah
Utah?
Jazz.
Yeah, good for them. Like they get the other Rutgers guy that falls. So
Utah's also very clearly feels like they're angling for Debanza in 2026, like the guy that has been like the guy that is going to go play in Utah.
I know it's Utah is now officially annoying me,
Yeah.
And I am sick. I hate when we do this. We gave the Sixers so much shit for the process. And then every team that did it since then were like, geniuses. Oh my God, like they are breaking the system. Look at Utah. Will Hardy's such a good coach. I don't know if he's a good coach. He seems like a good coach. I have no idea if he's a good coach. He doesn't had a chance to prove it. I'm sure he is. I don't know it. But we're getting to the point of malpractice. Like at some point, you got to stop just shopping Kelly Olynyk for a protected second-round pick and go win some freaking games. Go get good players. What are you doing with Lauri Markkanen? What a waste of a season for him. If I'm Markkanen, why am I looking around and be like, yeah, this is sick? I'd be like, trade me. This sucks.
Yeah, even like Walker Kessler.
At some point,
would you have just like considering where they're at? It's like I think there's an argument they could just take the 2031 Lakers pick for Walker Kessler and be like, yeah, it's fine, whatever, doesn't really matter. Like it would make them worse.
Walker Kessler's a good player. At some point, you have enough picks. You literally got to a point where you had to consolidate your picks because you have too many of them. If you're Utah, I know like a Jazz fan will yell at me and be like, well, we can't. We're not the Lakers. We're not the Heat. We're not the Knicks. We can't just get free agents. Okay, fine, but you've had good players come through there and you just traded them away. You have to, and you are clearly trying to lose games. There's a difference between trying to lose games and trying to win games. And Utah is not doing the thing where they're trying to win games. And I think that's going to have an adverse effect on the culture and the roster. You got your draft picks. Let those picks play out. You got to start doing something. Like this is just not.
They have 4 picks in the draft next year. That's like two. That's too many picks.
If I'm Adam Silver, at some point, how long is too long for a team to just blatantly disrespect the regular season the way that Utah has?
Might be now.
It would be right this summer. I'd be like, Ainge. I would be on the phone with Danny Ainge. And I'd be like, "What's the plan here?
Yeah,
what's the plan here?"
And then
if you tell me it's to keep trying to get picks, yeah, go trade for LaMelo. Do something. Like, what's the plan here? Because you can't keep disrespecting these 82 games 4 or 5 months out of the year. We have to be competitive. And Washington, you're on alert.
Washington's been on alert for a long time, but they
haven't been doing it as long as Utah, but
yeah, they're just sad. The Wizards just make me sad. You know, just tough. But we're gonna end there. I just want like
on my anti-Danny Ainge Utah Jazz rant. Perfect.
I mean, Wes, we snuck in you're now anti-Golden State, and via Danny Ainge you got an anti-Boston slant in. So like we're doing well. We covered all our bases today. We did a great job.
Yep. People know who I am.
That's right. We're going to end there, though. Chris Manning, Wes Goldberg. Again, go read Wes at The Ringer, Real Gym Radio, Locked Any. You can find me here. This is my one source of the only place to talk about basketball internet for me at this point in my life. So check me out here. Back next week, Wes is going to be out of the country, going to go detox, go to, I believe, an overseas wedding. We've got some special guests on them, including Brendan Clean coming back our next episode. Brendan Clean going to make him talk about the Phoenix Suns even more than he already does on Locked On Suns. Because I'm just really mad at Brendan for, dipping out on Wes and I. That's how we do things. You're the Just Basketball Show. Again, check out BetMGM, check out Homage, check out eBay's Game Time Gets. Back next week, more Just Basketball Show. Have a good one, everybody.